Do we have anything funny in this podcast?
Not really.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
You can say that here.
I don't really believe that lizard pedophiles run the world. Yes, I do.
Because I can't be trusted ever.
We should welcome everybody to the podcast. We never do that. We always just start blathering on. And this is the podcast known as You Can Say That Here, started by none other than my lovely co-host, Colleen Ferrari. And this is episode 24. We've actually done this 23 or so times previously. There was no episode 13. Yeah, there was no episode 13, but no one noticed. So
smart. And as of yet, the CIA or FBI have not kicked us off the air. So
that we know of. They could be suppressing us, though. They could easily be. Well, in fact, they are suppressing us, right? That's why we're not.
We've got a few comments. We've got a few comments after the serial killer episode last week, so I'm pretty sure people are listening.
Oh, good. I didn't see any of that.
Well, that's because you would have to be on Facebook to follow. Well, you can say that here on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram.
I am definitely on Twitter. I do highly encourage everyone to like and subscribe and respond if they can. That's great. We appreciate that. Colleen does read all the comments, and if they're good, she sends them around, and we all look at them.
Oh, no, I only send you the ones that say, oh, Andy was a little incorrigible this evening. You know, just the things to prove my point. The other ones can just stay, and I just, bathe in them.
Yeah, she only sends the ones that are in support of her. That's why she rarely sends them.
Hello, Bob. Bob just entered the room.
Bob the dog.
Yes. Hello, Bob.
Bob is an Anatolian shepherd. It's completely untrainable. Cannot be trained.
Quite attractive.
He's handsome.
Yes. Very handsome.
He's handsome.
All right. So this evening, I have a little list of. I figured I would start it off with a little something.
Okay.
So you have to tell me. I would like you to vote on each one of these things: conspiracy theory or nonsense.
Before we do that, let's get some things straight.
Oh, boy.
You and I probably mean very different things when we say conspiracy theory. I can already tell that when you say conspiracy theory, what you mean is this is not true. So.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I was telling you the other day about this Hemingway thing that I read, this conspiracy theory about Hemingway, that he could possibly be a Russian spy. And I thought, there's some arguments here or there. And then there's another theory that said he's a double spy, and my money is on the double spy. So I believe that some of these conspiracy theories are stories that are told kind of outside of the fray that could or could not be true, but are probably, in the most part, conspiracy theory is somebody's attempt to impose a narrative, probably, some narrative coherence on a frightening situation. Like there's war. We have, that's where they started, as a matter of fact, after the French Revolution. The first conspiracy theories were found.
No.
This is what I hear. This is what I, when I did my research, which I did do a little bit of research, and the first noted conspiracy theories came after the French Revolution.
Yeah. No. Sorry. As long as there have been humans, there's been conspiracies and theories about those conspiracies.
Well, so maybe the first documented.
Let's go back. Let's go back in time. Oh no, not the first documented one either. You're familiar with one that's much, much older.
Oh, if you're gonna say the Bible, I'm gonna.
Let's go back in time.
Oh, here we go.
Let's go back. Let's go back in time.
I'm floating there now.
There were a bunch of men left stranded after their leader had been brutally executed, and they wanted to continue with this revolution that they had started with this
were there 12 movement. Of these men?
There may have been. I think there was only 11 at this point. I'm pretty sure there was a lonely 11. The 12th one,
How do I always know where you're
the
going?
12th one may have fucked off into the dingo weeds
Can
by
you
then.
stop being so predictable, for goodness sakes?
But
Okay,
no, I'm going to.
conspiracy theories. Theory or nonsense? Go
It
ahead. I'm sorry. That was so disrespectful.
it
Go
was.
ahead.
It
Stop
was.
making fun of Jesus and my Catholicism,
I'm
please.
I'm not, but I'm saying that these two women or three women or whatever it was that said they saw Jesus come out of the tomb, that's a conspiracy, right? That's evidence of a
And how
conspiracy.
about all of the other people that saw him? Do they count for nothing?
No, nobody else saw him. It
How
was a
about
bunch
the
of, it was a couple.
Pentecost? Thousands of people at the same time.
It's got nothing to do with the
Thousands of
original event.
people during the Pentecost.
Look, it's conspiracy, a
But
theory
many
about a.
people
Go ahead. Go ahead.
and many people have, I mean, we're just going to get on the same argument about faith
No, I don't want to do that.
and
But
beliefs.
what I do want to, what I do want to try to clarify or argue about is what a, why humans even believe in things that without evidence. So it really, like, if you're asking, do I believe in conspiracy theories, you're asking me, do I believe in anything at all? Why do I believe what I believe is the core question. And faith is believing in the absence of evidence. A conspiracy theory is kind of the same thing, but humans evolved to be these pattern seeking animals. We look for patterns because it helps us find food, it helps us hunt, it helps us live in groups together. We learn to understand each other's motivations. When we don't understand something, we look for motivations, we look for incentives, we look for patterns. A conspiracy theory is really just the story around why something is the way it is.
Isn't a conspiracy theory more about, I always think, what is that physics? Wherever there is a force, there is an equal and opposing force, right?
Yeah.
It's when we don't understand things, and I do like, this whole idea that we're trying to come up with solutions for things that we don't have all the answers to.
Yeah.
It is very clear the government keeps things from us for our own protection, for their own vanity, for their evil ways, whatever the reason. Things are kept from us. I would agree with that. I like to believe that it's for good and not evil, but there's lots of arguments both ways. But don't you think conspiracy theories, there I think there are some that really beg to dig, like UFOs. I think that we could probably peel back the onion and say, you know what? There's a lot of evidence here. There is a lot of reason why this could possibly be true. It kind of makes sense. And then there's other things that are just fueled by personalities or characters that I feel like sometimes are for the benefit of the person starting the theory.
Correct. Money's a conspiracy theory. Everybody agrees money has value, paper money. It means something, right? It's a conspiracy, not a theory. It's a conspiracy. So it's the God of the gaps, Colleen. When we don't understand something, we tell stories to fill in the gaps. We kind of agree on that, I think, right?
I would agree. I would agree with that.
So,
I don't understand how money is a conspiracy, though. You lost me on that. So I'm waiting
well,
for the punchline on that
well,
one.
there isn't one. Like, we all agree collectively that a dollar bill is worth, half a dozen eggs or whatever. Like a quart of milk is worth $2. We
You
agree on the.
have not been shopping lately, have
No, I
you?
know, but we agree on we agree that this currency, this printed piece of paper, has a set value, and that everything works around that. But we agree it's worth something. If you don't agree it's worth anything, then you wouldn't, like, the economy wouldn't work. Nothing would work, right? So
I'm with you still.
this language is a conspiracy.
Still not understanding money is a conspiracy.
A conspiracy is when two or more people agree to assign meaning to a set of circumstances. That's my own definition that may have some holes in it. Go ahead and poke them.
Yeah. I mean, two people who agree on something, I think that's a very, very loose interpretation of conspiracy. Conspiracy, to me, is there is an opinion outside of the mainstream belief.
I guess my definition is quite a bit broader than that. So when two people conspire to commit a crime, that's a conspiracy.
So the crime would be against mainstream belief, right? Like a crime is kind of, if you're going to conspire to do something, you're working together in this clandestine way
Mm-hmm.
to go against something that is the norm of some sort.
Or to keep
Fair?
secret from, yeah, I see where you're going with that. Or to keep it secret from other people who you um are either afraid of or trying to exploit, either one. So you want to keep this,
Agree. Agree.
you're manipulating, you're telling a story, you agree to tell a story for the purpose of manipulating your audience.
I don't know that I have to stop you there because I think when we read some of these conspiracy theories, they're not always trying to manipulate their audience. I believe that people really believe
Right.
what they're saying. Like Alex Jones didn't believe in Pizzagate, right? He admitted that it was not true and he made that
Yeah,
up.
I don't think he ever
But
pushed that one. I don't think he was ever a QAnon
or the
person.
Sandy Hook
The
thing or
Sandy Hook
whatever.
thing, he said, was a conspiracy. He said it was a
Right.
hoax.
That they were actors. But then he actually later went out and said, no, Sandy Hook was real. So he did know that it was a real event.
Right.
Why he did it? I mean, it really propelled it. He's on the map. People know his name, infamous or famous. I don't know what the difference is sometimes.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's so unpredictable and he has done damage, although I don't think $1 trillion is really a fair price tag. Um, because he's been right about a whole shitload of stuff that no one else was talking about or was right about. He was talking about Epstein in the late 90s.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I didn't know this, but he created this company, InfoWars, that actually has a store on Amazon
Yeah.
to raise money
Yeah.
for his.
He started that after they kicked him off of YouTube and Twitter and everything else, which was a conspiracy. So when you have things like when you have all these powerful people that appear to be on the same exact message all the time, it's very triggering for pattern seeking animals. So a lot of us that look for trends and look for patterns and look for incentives and motivations and how does so somebody says something innocuous like I'm just going to put my well, this is a third rail. I'm just going to put my pronouns in my bio because everybody else is doing it. Right? So most people say, "Okay, what's the harm in putting my pronouns in my bio?" And they never drill down into what they're actually doing or what's really going on when you acknowledge that um, you need to put your pronouns in your bio.
Well, they haven't listened to Jordan Peterson this week, then.
Well, did he have an opinion on? I'm sure I know what his opinion would be on pronouns in bio, but I don't know explicitly. I mean, I can predict what his opinion would be on that. Not in favor. Oh, you're muted, which is probably a good thing because I'm all over the map.
So, do you think Jordan Peterson is a conspiracy theorist?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, by your definition of conspiracy, he's going against the norm, right? He's saying that Trudeau is just this actor and he has no substance and, la 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 la. But do you believe that he is a conspiracy theorist? He admittedly stopped teaching. I saw this really interesting panel discussion with him from students. Boy, oh boy. I saw a very interesting panel discussion with him and some students at Stanford University. And they asked him why he left. I think, was it University of Toronto he
Yeah.
taught at or something?
Yep.
And he said, because I recognize that even I love to do this, I'm too famous to do this now. And and by the way, anyone who follows me in a university setting now is setting themselves up for failure because they're attaching themselves to my name and therefore will not get a job or will be ostracized or whatever. And I can go talk about whatever I want on a stage in front of as many people as I want for as much money as I want and not hurt anyone.
Right.
Just that statement alone was just, I don't know. What is that? A little gratuitous, maybe to be kind.
Well, I'm trying to find a problem with what he said. I don't know. What do you think the issue is with that?
Well, to say, well, anybody that follows me now is their career is destined because I'm too big. Like, if somebody said they like me, my influence is too big that it would negatively affect their career.
That's
You're giving
yeah. I
yourself
don't.
a little too much gravitas, I think.
No, I think you misunderstand because he's been under attack since 2016 when he first came out against the trans activists that wanted to compel speech in Canada. So his initial rise to fame was because he came out very strongly and verbally against Bill C-16, which was basically saying that if you refuse to call someone by their pronouns, their stated pronouns, whatever their preferred pronouns are, if I misgender you, in other words, it's the term that we've all accepted as this is just a normal word that we all have now, misgendering. If I misgender you, then I have now committed a hate crime. That's what Bill C-16 was, and he was very openly and strongly against that because he said you're compelling speech, you're forcing me to say words that I might not choose to say, and that is a slippery slope to totalitarian speech control and stifling your political opponents, which is exactly what's happening in Canada, by the way. He was 100% correct about that.
Right. I don't disagree with that, but what is interesting after that is how he is the things that he is saying about Trudeau, whether you like Trudeau or not, do you really believe he's a puppet? Do you really believe he doesn't know what he's saying and that he's just an actor kind of put there by the party? I mean, that's
Do I
his
believe that? I
claim.
mean,
That's what Trudeau,
what
that
Peterson believes
what
Trudeau is.
Peterson believes. Yes,
Well,
sorry.
I don't know enough about Canadian politics to really weigh in on it, but I can tell you that if the things that I heard about, say, the trucker protest, for example, were true, and some of them came out of Trudeau's own mouth, he was describing the truckers as a bunch of racist, fascist, racist hooligans, and he's talking about his own citizens, number one. I'm not sure what evidence he had that they were racist. It's a term that means almost nothing anymore, except it means someone I don't like.
Yeah, so there was swastikas and some other paraphernalia there that led them to believe it. But Peterson believes that those were staged, that people were there with the swastika just to kind of put energy behind it, negative energy behind it.
Did you see during the Glenn Youngkin campaign in Virginia last year, his political opponent, whose name escapes me, Northam, I think, was the former governor of Virginia, actually sent his staffers to do a photo op at a white supremacist rally that had nothing to do with Youngkin, and they were like throwing up fake white supremacist hand signs, and it was the most pathetic thing, but it actually was staged, and what their goal was to make Youngkin look like he was associated with these white supremacists. I mean, it's a trick. It's as old as time. Associate your enemy with something so reprehensible that nobody could ever agree with it. There are literally maybe thousands of hours of Jordan Peterson talking and giving lectures. If someone was so inclined, they could listen to every minute of it. They would never hear him say something racist or sexist or hurtful towards anybody. People can choose to be offended by all kinds of things, and so they've invented a whole bunch of opinions that he has, to to paint him to be this villain. And I think that's what he's talking about. If you're aspiring in an academic career and you associate yourself with him, you're now outside the mainstream. You're a renegade automatically. And it's not because of him being famous, it's because of him being counter narrative. Does that make sense?
It does. It
There were
does.
there
So
were
is he a conspiracy theorist?
No, not in the way you mean it. I'm pretty sure what you mean is someone who's um a nut job.
No, I don't think conspiracy theorists are nut job. I think that's where you're misunderstanding me.
Well,
I don't
then
believe
we
that
have
at
to.
all.
But then I really want to clarify that because I don't know what you mean by the question. Does he believe that there is a conspiracy, like Trudeau is part of a conspiracy? Yeah, I think he probably does, and he's basing that on some evidence, but I don't really know.
Is Jordan Peterson dangerous if he's wrong?
To whom?
See, this is where I don't think he's dangerous, but I do think sometimes conspiracy theorists can be dangerous. But I do believe that there are pieces of what he says and does that could, he dances this fine line for me. Is he doing this for attention? Does he really believe that Trudeau is this puppet, or is this hunger for fame that people go after that I think becomes a dangerous element when you talk about conspiracy theories?
So you think maybe there's a chance that he's clout chasing, and this is all sort of understood by him, that he would become very famous by being counter narrative and calling Trudeau a puppet, and that he would pick up. I think there's an element of that in a lot of so-called right-wing pundits. I think there's a lot of people out there that understand that there is a huge audience for counter narrative. And when I say narrative, I mean like the grand narrative. I mean the thing that Joe Biden says, and then 6 hours later Justin Trudeau says the same thing, and then Macron says it, and then they say it in the UK. And this whole, like, you could go down a rabbit hole for days and days and days on Build Back Better alone, right? So is there a group called the World Economic Forum that's a think tank that just comes up with really good ideas about how to live more sustainably and invent better forms of government? And it's benevolent, and it wants the right thing for humanity, and it just wants the species to continue, and that's their motivation? Or is there a group called the World Economic Forum that is an evil organization hell-bent on some form of pedophilic globalist lizard agenda? I don't know. It's somewhere in between, probably.
I don't know, but if I joined one, I think I would want to join the Illuminati.
Well,
like if I was going to be a part of some underground kind of power source that was fueling leaders, I think I'd choose the Illuminati. I think they have a lot more power, and they may actually have a bunker under the Denver International Airport.
And you have no problem with the fact that they worship a subterranean goat god that only eats black people?
Oh, I didn't know that was part of it.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the Illuminati are. Is that a true thing? I have to ask now because I probably should have done some homework. I just thought they have all of these billions of dollars, and they are kind of the puppeteers for believed to be the puppeteers for some of the most powerful people in the world.
Are
And
billionaires
so if
involved?
I were the puppeteer, this is what I would do. If I was the puppeteer, I'd have like the little Putin puppet, I have the little Biden puppet, and I'd make them hug.
Well, that's
peace, baby.
Not as profitable.
Right? Like nobody's talking about peace right now. This is kind of a big
Peace is not profitable. Peace doesn't sell clicks and engage people. People love hate and strife. Orwell pointed it out in 1984. Hate is the most powerful motivator in the human's experience. Way more powerful than love. Your boy Lex Fridman believes that love is the answer, right? Mm-hmm. But Orwell understood that it's hate. So you have to have an enemy, and it doesn't really matter who that enemy is. You can come up with a story, a conspiracy theory, if you will, about anybody and make them out to be a villain. Trump was perfect for that. Trump was, made it so easy for the people that needed a villain to create a movement. So the Democrats wanted to gain more political power. They had lost all their political power under Obama. Trump comes along. Here they are trying to push Hillary over the finish line, and she was just so unlikable that it was a near thing. But she wanted to run against Trump. She got to run against the candidate she thought she could beat without a problem. And then lo and behold, the asshole wins. And why did he win?
So
Because
if I had to guess, I know why he won. I'm going to tell you this answer right
good,
now.
good.
The Illuminati.
Yeah.
If they're goat worshipping evil people who live underground and probably enjoy trolls, then that must be who was backing Trump. They just wanted to mix up the whole world and make more money. They're probably all arms dealers and, something like that.
Oh, there's a lot of truth to that. My camera appears to be frozen. That's okay. Can you still hear me okay?
I can still hear you.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like Eisenhower warned about the military industrial complex, right? In his farewell speech, he said, look out for this. What he was really talking about was the market forces capturing government, and that has happened. That happened a long time ago. So our government works hand in hand with business to sort of steer the direction that the country goes in. These people don't much care how they govern or what happens here or anywhere else for that matter. Their motivation appears to be sustainable profit.
I strongly disagree. I believe there are a lot of really good people in politics, and I believe that to be the president, I don't think that most people go after this quest because they want to control the world. I think there's probably some allure of the power, but I think that they put themselves through this. I mean, the road to political office or top offices, or they're just plagued by hardship for your family and for your reputation, and you just are laying it all out on the line. You're exhausted, you're begging for money all the time. This can't be like an enjoyable journey to get where you're going. You have to have a greater purpose, and I want to believe that that greater purpose is good.
Well, I think looking at things in terms of good and evil is a little bit tricky because there's so many gradations in between, and nothing's pure good or pure evil. Well, I think we might be able to agree on what's pure evil, but it's hard to agree on what's pure good because most trade-offs are good for some and not so good for others, right? So Bill Hicks used to have a joke. You ever heard of Bill Hicks? A very famous comedian back in the 70s and 80s. He had a joke, and he said that something to the effect of, all these people get elected to be president, and they all have these great ideas going in, and they campaign and they talk about what they want to do. And it's like, why do they all break their promises? Every single one of them, they promise this, they promise that, and it gets them elected. And people are like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And they elect them. And then when they get there, they break every single one of those promises. Why is that? And his theory was, it's because on your first day in the White House, they bring you into a room and they show you an angle of the Kennedy assassination that you've never seen before. And then they ask if you have any questions.
That's awful. I really believe it's because they believe that they can win people over, and the fight is much harder than anybody ever expected. I mean, even Trump went in there. Remember, like, I can't remember, it was maybe a month or two into office, and he had this interview, and he said, this is a harder job than I expected. And I kind of applaud that honesty.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about Trump, is as many lies as he told almost as many truths. But the thing that got him in bigger trouble with his political enemies was when he told the truth, because that's something that you just don't do. He broke the fourth wall. Is that what it is? The fourth wall? Yeah, he broke the fourth wall. He talked directly to the American people about things that politicians don't talk about. He talked about the military industrial complex. He talked about the intelligence community, intelligence agencies spying on the American people. You don't touch those topics. when you're in politics. And he did those things, and that's what they hated him for. It's permanent Washington.
I think they hated him for a lot of other reasons.
Oh, sure.
I get that. I absolutely get that. But there's plenty of other reasons to hate him besides those things. And I don't know that any of those things were new unless you've been living under a rock.
No,
right?
None of those things are new. That's permanent Washington. When he was talking about draining the swamp, that's what he was referring to. The swamp that most people know is there. They know permanent Washington exists. They know that the country is really run by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats who have been there for decades.
The Koch brothers, perhaps?
Yeah, the Koch brothers, sure. The Koch brothers, the Monsanto Corporation, the Rand Corporate. You go down the list, whoever you want to talk about.
So let's kind of shift a little closer to conspiracy theorists, a little away from government, because we can talk about government and go into a hole there, a rabbit hole there. Let's kind of pull it back to, why do you think that there are, you started to touch on this, but what are the reasons you think conspiracy theories are created?
Because we don't have all the information to explain why something is the way it is.
So is it based on fear? Like, is it our way to impose narrative coherence on frightening situations?
Yes. That's seems like a very textbook definition of it. Applying narrative coherence. So let me think of one. I can't think of one right now. I'm terrible with analogies tonight. I don't know. I think it's the evening. I'm much more of a morning guy, you know?
Yeah, me too. We'll go back to mornings.
Okay.
But so I was, I was thinking, because you had brought up the pandemic. And so I don't know if you remember, there was this whole thing that came up and they were calling it the infodemic. Do you remember that? I think the CDC came up with it. And at one point, Twitter had, they had a COVID tweet every 45 milliseconds, based with origins and motives, specifically focused on origins and motives of the coronavirus.
Right.
And so it's so interesting, all of that information. So I was just reading this study that I thought was fascinating. So they decided to do this study, and they took a subgroup of people in the US, a subgroup of people in the UK, and they came up with, they only created 2 posts, but they controlled, like, they watched these people. They were all people who had said that they were going to they were firm believers in the vaccination. And they were all pre-targeted because they had said that they would get vaccinated. So unbeknownst to them, they put 2 tweets into their Twitter feeds. The first one was that the new vaccine would alter your DNA. And the second one is that the new vaccine would make 97% of us infertile. And just with those 2 tweets, just 2 ridiculous tweets that they created, that group, when they were retested and asked about the vaccine, both of them, the UK and the US, saw over a 6% drop in vaccinations because of those. That was the only difference.
One of those 2 tweets is actually potentially true, not the fertility one.
That it would alter your DNA.
Yeah, but that's a very broad stroke. So I've seen scientists. This is an appeal to authority. It's not actual evidence, and certainly not something I can put my hands on myself. But there's enough reason to doubt what Pfizer is telling you about even the CDC and the FDA and the NIH and all of these. And this is a conspiracy theory, okay? I have a theory. I'm stating a theory that all of these agencies and corporations conspired to spread misinformation that would increase vaccine uptake. So they said things about the vaccine that they knew at the time were not true. If they told us that it would not stop transmission, nobody would have taken it. If they told us that it would cause, and they probably didn't.
What do you mean that it would stop transmission? I mean,
So
I don't, you said that before to me,
yeah,
like last week.
well, yeah. So Dr. Birx came out a few weeks ago. Remember Dr. Birx? She kind of faded into the sunset, but she was right there alongside Fauci for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Yeah, we knew it wouldn't stop transmission." And then the CDC came out and said, "Yeah, we knew it wouldn't stop transmission." And then Pfizer, in the European Parliament 2 weeks ago, said, "We didn't test to see if it would stop transmission." So they may not have known that it didn't stop transmission, which it did not. But they definitely didn't know whether it would or it wouldn't. So they were saying that it would stop transmission the whole time.
So that was not the pharmaceutical companies, that was the government, that was Fauci
Well, it was the
saying that,
pharmaceutical
Ember.
company. So you can go back and find a clip of Albert Bourlas, the CEO of Pfizer, saying you're not going to get coronavirus. You take this vaccine, you won't get coronavirus. More importantly, you're going to protect grandma. Remember, protect grandma, how important that was to everybody?
Yeah.
Take the vaccine, you won't kill grandma. Everybody agrees with not killing grandma, so why wouldn't I take the vaccine? Albert Bourlas said this. Fauci said it on multiple occasions. The president said it. What's her name? Walensky from the CDC. She said it. You won't get the coronavirus, and you will not transmit.
If I cannot argue that point. I am not informed enough. I'm going to just go with it.
They all said it. And now what's coming out is you've got executives from Pfizer being grilled in front of the European Parliament saying, we did not test. The clinical trials did not include a test to see if the vaccine had any effect on transmission. So what was the point of the trials? It was my question. I guess to make sure it doesn't just kill you instantly, which they determined it doesn't do, and I'm agreeing that it doesn't. But safe and effective were the buzzwords. Safe and effective, safe and effective. No one could say it was safe, and they didn't know whether it was effective or not. That's the truth now. And you may disagree.
So
you may
I'm
disagree
pulling
with
up
that.
my fact checker. So I just typed it into fact checker, and so it said, what was claimed? A Pfizer executive had admitted the company did not test whether its COVID-19 vaccine stopped transmission of the virus before its launch. The verdict.
Now the spin.
This is fact checker, don't you like?
Oh, fact checker.
This is a nonprofit fact checker. Pfizer was always clear it did not test whether the vaccines reduce the risk of transmission among already infected individuals, but the trial did show the vaccines reduced infection risk in the first place, so reduced the risk of onward infection.
And you're okay with that? You think that?
Well, I do remember when it was coming out and they said that within, wasn't it like if you didn't get it, you weren't going to transmit it 24 hours after. I just assumed that it was because you showered, cleaned, and the virus was gone and passed through. But I don't know, Andy. I think, maybe. So here's an interesting thing, it's COVID, and my husband's in the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm a little biased, right? But one of the coolest things that ever happened was in the beginning of coronavirus. We hadn't built out his office. It had just happened. Like it was March 2020 or whatever, maybe even February 2020. And I was working from home and he had to share my office because we just weren't equipped yet. And so he had to take this conference call while I was in the room with him. And it was all of the heads of different pharmaceutical companies all talking together about how they were going to go after solving this crisis and creating a vaccine, and how some of them would take these routes and some would take other routes. And, it's kind of, I remember listening to that call. And after my husband got off the call, I said, wow, this is really amazing. He said, well, it makes sense that Johnson & Johnson goes after this. And he doesn't work for any of the 3 major or 4 major companies that did this. But it was, they all had specialties. They were all much closer and had already done a lot of pre-work to be able to get there. So then the other pharmaceutical companies were now supporting this solution finding and this fact finding mission. So they'd all get on these conference calls together and share information so they could, save the world quicker and more effectively, which to me was probably one of the most important, impactful moments that I had ever witnessed, that said, wow, these companies, here are these companies that are putting the world ahead of their profit, and
You
they were
think
being,
you think that's what happened? Do you think
I
that they put
mean,
the
this
world
is
ahead
what
of
I
their profit? What
heard
did they lose? Yeah,
firsthand.
no, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not disagreeing that that's what was said, but I'm looking at record profits for the companies that were involved in this, and I don't see how they put anything
So,
ahead of that. Like I just don't see
so
how they.
I will tell you, my husband works for Bristol Myers Squibb. Bristol Myers put people and resources into helping these other companies
Yeah, and they did that for
find
free.
a solution and find a cure.
I think that's
As far as
great.
I know, I mean, my husband wasn't getting paid by anybody else to be on this call.
No, but his stock hopefully increased in value.
I mean, BMS didn't make any money off of the
Well,
coronavirus.
maybe he should have been a better scientist.
But
I'm kidding. I'm
it
kidding.
wasn't
I'm
even
kidding.
that. It's they decided they were talking about who is best at what. And then they were, because they all had locations all around the world, it
Yeah, I
was kind of,
mean,
it's interesting to hear the person who is the head of the Italian, I forget what it was. I think maybe it was Pfizer Italy, say, hey, this is what's happening here. And then somebody in China on the call saying, hey, this is what's happening with coronavirus here. And this is what we're seeing. And just that information sharing was, I mean, it really
I'm
gave me
I'm
goosebumps.
I'm not doubting any of that at all. I'm not doubting the heroic response. I'm not doubting that people worked around the clock and that 99% of people could have had the only thing on their mind could have been, we have to figure out a way to stop this because people are dying, in large numbers, and we have to do something. I'm not doubting any of that at all. But your statement that they did it for nothing, I don't think is true. I think that that's inaccurate because I think they made more money than they've ever made before.
But Andy, there were, I don't know, 15 or 16 different companies
Yeah.
on this call. Only 4 of them created vaccines.
And so was Bristol Myers involved in, once the thing was built and the patents were had, were
No,
they
$0.
involved?
$0.
They were not manufacturing it. They were
No,
not.
no,
So they weren't using all available resources to make this thing. They were keeping it to them.
no.
So Pfizer and BioNTech and Johnson weren't using, and this is, I don't understand whether it's even possible. So maybe it's a good question for Scott. If Pfizer had presented the formula for this thing, or the method, or whatever you would call it, the way to make this, the code to make this vaccine, could Bristol then have begun to make it? Why was the technology only shared with a certain few, right? So
Well, like science is very patented, right?
right. So but
So,
why is that?
I will tell you one thing that I find really interesting. So, my husband is a genius, and I watch a creation of drugs and I watch how much time he spent on one drug.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the average time it takes one drug to come to market is 10 years. And sometimes cancer drugs are pushed through earlier. But when I look at how many drugs fail, like just even at the molecular level, and how much time, energy, and payroll is put towards, I'm all about business and driving business and ROI and all of that stuff. But when I look at all the time, money, and resources that is put, billions of dollars is invested into creating a drug, right? And I it was eye-opening because I actually, I was one of those people before I met my husband that would say $80 for this pill, it probably cost them 10 cents to make, but I do think that we have a lot of people, and and I know in the UK, right, the pharmaceutical companies they're part of the government. So it's not a for-profit company. I was asked is it Oxford AstraZeneca or something?
AstraZeneca, yeah.
Yeah, they're funded by the government. I don't think it makes a difference. I think that my husband, every day he goes to work so excited because he might be able to. Right now, he's working on this multiple myeloma drug, and he works on some anti-inflammatory drugs. And every day he goes to work saying, maybe this is a drug that's going to change somebody's life.
I'm not saying Scott's evil. I hope that's not what you're
No, no,
hearing.
no. I'm not hearing that at all. But I think as we look at the pharmaceutical companies, and from my perspective is very different from yours. You're saying, oh, they didn't tell us this. They're trying to trick us into that.
Not my
I don't
words.
know. I hear a whole bunch of really good people that are trying to help people. Very much like, my husband's a PhD. They're all most of the people there are doctors. They're there for the same reason a
I
medical doctor
I
is
have
there.
no doubt that that is 100% true, and that every single one of those people wants to help and doesn't want to do any harm. I'm not doubting that for a second. And I think what they go into it for the right reasons, they stay in it for the right reasons, and their talent has saved countless lives. And I'm not denying those things are not mutually exclusive. What I'm saying and what you're saying are nowhere near opposites or contradictions of each other.
Okay, because I just heard you question a few times whether or not people were getting kickbacks or sharing technologies because they were capitalizing on a pandemic.
They did capitalize on the pandemic.
They did.
I'm not saying that every company capitalized. I don't really know the reality of that. So, but certainly the ones that created the vaccine made more money than they ever have before on any of their other products. This was the most profitable product they've ever made. And it went to market without being fully tested.
But here's an interesting thing. The verdict, fact checker. You're talking over and over about the transmission issue. And here it's saying Pfizer was always clear. Like there was no miscommunication from Pfizer
That is
on
a,
this particular transmission fact.
do you know what a memory hole is?
No, tell
So
me.
they're trying very hard to memory hole the fact that they said this thing will prevent you from transmitting COVID. They said it.
Listen, I mean, everything was on TV, everything was recorded.
There's tons of, you go look. You haven't looked
I'm
for it because
looking.
you don't want to see it. I
Well,
don't think
maybe I don't want to see it, but I'm going through this and I'm looking and I don't know. I'm not seeing anything that corroborates your
the
your perspective on this. So is it possible? Yes, it is possible. I'm not seeing anything at a quick glance on my feed that
you're looking at
corroborates it.
evidence. You're looking at the evidence that's provided to you by the Associated Press fact checker, right?
No, I'm actually looking at Healthy News, Full Fact. I'm looking at factcheck.org,
And
the
so
WCPO. What is that?
I
I don't
am
know what
more
that.
I'm
Reuters,
oh
New
Reuters,
England
yeah.
Journal of Medicine,
Yeah. They've all um
Science Brief Centers for Disease Control. So I think this is what happens, right? Like we start to push against each other, and I don't even understand why, but why
well,
does
it's because you're
one
not
person
willing. I
hear
don't
one
think
thing, one person hear another thing?
I think you I think you're not willing to I don't think you have an open mind about it at all. I'm willing to admit that um
Potentially, I don't, but I'm telling you at quick glance,
yeah,
like what I'm reading is very clear and contradicts what you're saying.
but listen to what you just said at a quick glance. Now, how many people actually go beyond a quick glance?
Well, after we hang up and stop recording this damn podcast, I'm gonna go and prove you wrong, Andrew Levesque.
Is it possible? Is it
I don't really
possible?
care enough, to be honest with you. I don't really care enough
Well,
about this particular issue, but there are some things that I'll go deeper in. But
so
you're right. I want to believe what I want to believe on certain things.
yeah.
That's absolutely evident.
And I don't want to believe that there's a global conspiracy of pedophilic lizard people. I don't want to believe that, but the evidence just keeps bringing me there.
Oh my God, you're such a
No,
jerk.
I'm kidding about that. But no, I've been presented with other evidence that leans me in a different direction. I'm more willing to believe that whatever fact check website you're looking at, especially Reuters, who was purveying,
No, it wasn't. There were two different fact check, and
but
then
all those,
Reuters
so
also said it.
I am more willing to believe that those fact check websites are part of the problem than I am willing to believe that the pharmaceutical industry, which prior to COVID would have been America's choice as the least trustworthy industry on the planet. That's also, you can check that.
I believe that, but I find it well, now what are they talking about now? There's all these conspiracy theories that the coronavirus has created RSV in infants, and that's why we're having this huge respiratory virus problem with children right
They're
now.
saying the vaccine has created RSV potentially, but I don't know what the rate is. The kids that have RSV, are they all vaccinated or are they all unvaccinated? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Are
I
we
don't
ever
know
going
that
to get
information.
the truth on any of it? That's the real thing that bothers me. So that's why I try to keep an open mind for some of the less kooky sounding conspiracies. Like, to me, it doesn't sound crazy to think that certain people who had control of all the levers of power at Pfizer and the other pharmaceutical industries got together and said, hey, here's one that we could do. We can make a shitload of money and we can solve this problem at the same time. Who created the problem? That's another one. So the lab leak hypothesis was a conspiracy theory. People were getting kicked off of Twitter for life for saying this, for asking a question. This is the other thing that goes hand in hand with it, is the censorship that was going on.
Well, I think Twitter is a problem, right? I mean, it goes to the Elon Musk and wanting to buy Twitter and everything.
Well, yeah, he wants Twitter to adhere to principles of free speech that are closer to what's laid out in the Constitution. So threats and threats of violence and those kinds of things would still be verboten, but you're not going to ban people for life for saying a woman is a woman.
So I have to tell you, can we digress just a moment off
I would
conspiracy
love to.
theories and then we can come back to it. So, I've had this on and off love affair with Elon Musk, and I'm done with him now. I just, as far as, whatever. But I can't dispute the fact that he's not only a little weird, but a brilliant businessman. So I have this colleague who always says, oh, do it like your hair's on fire. Treat this like your hair's on fire. So Elon Musk comes up, the Boring Company, they came up with the flamethrower. He comes up with the world's worst smelling cologne. It's called burnt hair. Have you heard this?
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Oh my God. So I hear this, right? I'm driving and I hear this on the radio. I'm like, holy shit, I need to go get burnt hair from my colleague. So I call my admin and I'm like, immediately, take my credit card, go get online, order this burnt hair cologne. I have to have you send it to this person as a funny gift. She calls me back. She goes, Colleen, I don't think you want me to make this purchase. I'm like, why? She goes, well, it's sold out immediately. And by the way, it's already being sold on eBay she said, I did find a bottle for $400, but it goes up to $4,000.
It'll be
for a
$500,000
bottle of burnt hair.
it's I think it will top out at $500,000. They'll sell the last bottle at Christie's auction house for $500,000.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know if I told you the story. So we were going to Easter Vigil, and I don't know, for anybody who doesn't know Easter Vigil, it's, it's Saturday night and it's a little bit longer mass and they give you candles and, it's just this really beautiful evening mass before Easter. So we're going to Easter Vigil. And my daughter, I think she's like 7 at the time, and her friend who has never stepped foot in her church, her parents don't practice, asks if she can come with us. And I'm like, well, of course, just ask if it's okay with your mother. So we go and bring her to mass, and they're like two little angels, and they have their candles in front of them, and her little friend is looking down at the candle and lights her hair on fire.
Oh
I
Jesus.
was like, oh my God. All of a sudden I saw it in my hand, like just immediately went and swooped and, took the fire out. But I've never
There's
seen anything
people
like
that
it. I
would
was
say,
so terrified.
there are plenty of people that on your side of the belief fence that would say that God smote her. You know that, right?
Oh my gosh, the kid had never been to church, right? And the first time she steps into a church, she lit on fire. What
Yeah,
is
well,
that?
because she wasn't baptized. I
Oh,
when I was
that's
a kid, I was raised Catholic, and I only ever went to a Catholic church. And then one weekend, I stayed over to a friend's house. I was probably 11 years old. I stayed over to a friend's house, and they were Episcopals, and they were like they weren't just he was an altar boy. They were front row people. They were big in this church. Like this was their thing, the Episcopal Church. And they said, I slept over on a Saturday night, not knowing that I was going to have to go to mass the next day. And I was in the process of, I think, getting my confirmation at that point. So I was about as Catholic as I was ever going to be. And I asked the question, I said, well, I'm Catholic. Is it okay if I go to an Episcopal church? And my friend's mother said, it's okay. God will forgive you. And I said,
wow.
well, that's what I said. I said, okay, well, I'll go. So I said, should I get communion? And she's like, well, it's pretty much the same. That's up to you. And I felt like because I was in church, I should get communion. So I went to get communion and I fucking almost fainted. And I thought at that time, I was like, oh my God, I just got smote.
Why did you almost faint while you
Because
were in
God's
line?
clearly Catholic. That was the conclusion that like he was sending a shot across my bow. Don't mess with these Episcopals. They're all going to hell. And I told my friend that afterwards. I said, now I know you're
I
going to
bet
hell.
you didn't get invited.
I never stayed there on a Saturday again. It was always a Friday or not at all.
Oh, that's
on Saturdays
funny.
he'd come stay at my house so he wouldn't have to go to church. So,
that's hysterical.
Yeah, I don't tell that story to a lot
Well,
of people.
if
I guess I just did.
well, you just did.
Yeah.
You can say that here, my friends.
Yeah,
Please like and subscribe. Okay, let's play my conspiracy theory game.
All right, real quick,
Can we
and
do
then
that?
yes,
Come on.
I know you worked hard on it. Let's do it.
Well, not. I was just kind of. I was
I
going through this little list, and I was like, I wonder what Andy would say.
You know how I am, though. I'm just can't not get hung up on the language. So, like, true or not would be a better way to put it than conspiracy theory or not, because of course everything's a conspiracy theory. So I just get hung up on the language. That's my thing. It's probably
right.
I'm a little
Let's change it
I don't
to
know.
bullshit or maybe true.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Can I list individual components of it that are maybe true or even verified as true?
You can do whatever you want. This is
Okay.
our game, right?
Okay. Okay, good.
All right.
This will be fun then.
All right. Kennedy assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald, murderer or CIA pawn? So was he a CIA pawn?
Was the CIA involved? Probably. Yeah. Did Harvey act alone? Probably not.
Oh. All right. UFOs.
Definitely something to it. Definitely real.
I thought I'd throw you an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
A mind control lab run by the government in Alaska, and they believe it was the reason that the Challenger went down.
I hadn't heard that.
Conspiracy theory.
I had never heard that one. I don't think that one. I believe that there might have been a lab, but whether that was the reason the Challenger went down, you mean like somebody mind controlled it down?
Apparently, they said
no. I don't believe that one. I don't believe
bullshit.
I don't think that one's real.
All right. Bigfoot. There's been 2,032 sightings in Washington state of Bigfoot.
This is going to shock a lot of people that know me and know that I spent 3 months looking for Bigfoot. There is no fucking Bigfoot.
I did not know you spent 3 months looking for Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true?
Unofficially. But yes, I was out there for 3 months and I never saw a Bigfoot or heard
in
one.
Washington.
Yeah, I was in the North Cascades, which is Bigfoot Central.
That's awesome. Well, then the Loch Ness Monster in Montana, over 100 people on a passenger steamboat. all said they saw the Loch Ness monster.
How could it be
Someone,
the Loch Ness
something that
monster in
resembled it.
Montana? Well, I mean, are there?
Something that resembled it,
uh,
apparently.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see something like that with my own eyes, I think, before I would really. Why are these photos always so fucking blurry?
That's a good question. And how did 109 people or something on a steamboat not get a good picture? Okay,
I
this
think
one,
like three people said they saw it, and then the other 106 thought they saw it because the three people were very convincing. That's the way these things work.
yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Okay, this one. I do think this one might be true. Well, for sure, there is a giant volcano under Yellowstone National Park, right? And it is so big that they believe that it can wipe out the earth. The conspiracy theory is that the government knows when that is going to happen.
Don't believe it. Although
You don't?
sometimes
What don't you believe? The volcano
no,
is
no,
for
no.
sure.
I
That's
think the volcano is pretty obvious. You can go there and feel the heat. There's something moving around under there that's hot. But that they know the exact date of it, the government wouldn't be the ones to. Well, I mean, maybe the USGS. I mean, I guess it's possible.
I mean, with our information that we have today.
It's possible. Let's put that one in the it's possible pile.
All right. Martin Luther King, James Earl Ray was either working with the KKK or the FBI.
No, definitely with the FBI. No fucking way was. I'm sorry. There's just no. Martin Luther King. They wanted everyone to think that the Klan killed. They were trying to stoke a race war the whole time. The FBI and the CIA together were trying to stoke a race war in this country. Forget about it. No way did the Klan kill MLK. It was the freaking government. He was dangerous.
What made him dangerous? Dangerous enough for the FBI to get involved. I mean, I just don't want to believe
He
that's
was
true at
counter
all.
narrative. He was counter narrative. He was saying things out loud that people that preserve power wouldn't want said. He had a huge following. He was extremely charismatic. What if he ran for president and changed some things that cost some important people some money? They can't have those kinds of things.
Hey, I wonder if Martin Luther King Jr. ran for president. I mean, he had such a following. It was such a moment in history. And I don't know if the moment was as big back then as I imagine it was, because I think his assassination actually maybe fueled it even more, right? And kind of made it larger than life. But
Yeah.
would Martin Luther King have been president?
If he had that aspiration, he certainly would be in the running, but they would never let it happen. That's the thing. You see what they do to candidates that don't fit the mold. I mean, you ever listen to Ron Paul talk?
Yep.
I mean, you listen to Ron Paul, it's like, this guy ran for president. No one even knows it because they absolutely railroaded him and got rid of him. They got rid of Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard in the last election. I mean, the corporate legacy media and government and Wall Street are all one thing. That's something that everybody needs to wake up to and understand it. And whatever permanent Washington wants, permanent Washington gets.
Okay, I have two more. Jimmy Hoffa.
Don't care.
The Teamsters. Well, there's some mystery about Jimmy Hoffa, and the mafia is kind of always something
Oh,
I'm
that's true.
interested
Yeah,
in.
no, I do
But the
care.
Teamsters, yeah. So the mafia and the Teamsters got together because they didn't want him to be president again. I mean, that's probably true.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
Mafia had
here's
somebody
one.
whacked.
Yeah,
I
I
looked
mean,
for
not a
him
big
too, by the way. I
surprise.
looked for him. I was in that end zone where he allegedly was buried in Giant Stadium. They said they buried him in in the end zone. They never found his body. So the urban legend was that he was buried in the concrete at the southern end zone of Giant Stadium.
So you looked for him by staring at walls? I mean,
Yeah, I stared at the ground for a while and didn't see him.
please tell me you were on some kind of hallucinogenic at
No,
the
I was like 12 years
time.
old.
All right.
All
So here,
all my best experiences happened between the ages of 11 and 13.
You were quite the explorer during. I love those stories when you go back to being a kid because I just find them fascinating.
And
It's
I had a,
hysterical.
I
All
would, my
right,
parents would have been
so
arrested for
I
child
love
abuse.
oh, all of our parents. It's a different time, different
Yep.
time. I love this one. I had no idea, so I'm a New Jersey girl. Pine Barrens, New Jersey. It was the place that they were testing interdimensional travel, and now it's abandoned because the cat got out of the bag.
It's, I'm sure that they looked at it. I mean, I don't know how far they took the test. Is this like the Philadelphia experiment? Is it the one where
Are you
the
talking that the underground fire is that the Philadelphia
no,
experiment?
I thought the Philadelphia experiment was the one where they made a battleship disappear. There was a movie about it. Like the
Oh,
battleship goes to
yeah.
another, it gets transported to another dimension. I doubt it because they've never, I mean, I don't doubt that the experiments were happening, but I don't think they were successful.
I think I have my answer now. After this little quiz, I'm pretty confident that you're a conspiracy theorist. I mean, lizard people alone. I think you've started and are perpetuating that
Uh, uh,
conspiracy theory.
the lizard
And there is
people?
something about that coffee place. I think they're in on it with you.
I think there may be a conspiracy to keep you from getting any Haley House coffee, which is delicious, and and you can't get it. So that's why you probably are slandering me in such a way and saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, which when you say it, you mean I'm a nut job. That's what you mean.
I might infer that.
I believe
You know what my
things.
problem is? I probably could be a conspiracy theorist if I wanted to be,
You
if
are
I
one.
wanted to dig into it. But this is the problem. I just sometimes, like in my job, right, as a leadership, business coach, whatever, I'm always dealing with stuff that's going wrong, right? And so I'm always teaching people positive intent and how to see the good side of things and count their blessings and all of this other stuff. It kind of goes against who I am. Like, naturally, I just want to believe the best in people. I know it's naive because I know it's not always right, but I think that's why I can't really, like, maybe you get that nut job vibe when I talk about conspiracy theorists because it just goes against who I want people to be.
But
Even I know that I'm a little delusional.
what the difference, one of the differences that I think I've gotten out of this conversation, one of the differences between you and I is I fully acknowledge that might my beliefs might be biased in a certain direction because I want to believe X narrative versus Y narrative. So I might put more weight on some evidence versus some other evidence that would be contrary to my narrative. I understand all that process. And so I'm very cautious about what I actually believe. I don't really believe that lizard pedophiles run the world. Yes, I do. But you don't seem to share that um acknowledgement.
Curiosity?
No, it's not the curiosity, but you don't seem to share that sort of recognition of yourself.
Oh, I believe that in myself. I do have that. But you know what it is, Andy? I really love to win the argument. I
Right.
think I enjoy that piece far more
Well,
than I want to recognize
I'm
that
all in
I'm
favor of you winning.
biased.
I'm in favor of you winning the argument, but you can't do it by um two things. You can't do it by appealing to authority, which like your fact checker thing, like that's some kind of a checkmate because there's a whole thing to unravel there. And the other thing you can't do is by branding your opponent, whether it's me or anybody else, you can't brand them as incoherent or a nut job or a conspiracy theorist because that's detracting from the actual debate over the evidence.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Very clear. You need to hear me right now. I need your face. I'm looking at this
I
fern.
know I
I have
can't
a picture of
fix
a
it.
fern before you were down. You were
Oh,
looking down. You had this goofy face when your face was frozen. There you are. I cannot talk to a fern when
I
I'm
don't
having this
want you to. I
conversation.
wanted my
You
camera to
need
work.
to hear me.
I tried to make
Okay.
it work several times. You don't have to believe me, but you can check your fact checker
I
later. I'll report it.
I see you now. Look into my eyes, Andrew Levesque.
I'm looking.
Thank you. I do not think conspiracy theorists are nut jobs. I do think that some of them are out for profit, but I do not believe that they're nut jobs. You kept saying that. I kept denying that. You can stop looking at my eyes right now. Go back to the fern, for God's sake.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, because
No, I don't think
I
they're
don't
nut
think you're a
jobs.
nut job for believing that maybe there's not some insidious motive in everything that we see and hear, and that maybe people are just, sometimes mistakes are made and they look like they're on purpose. I believe that's possible too. By the way, I keep the door open.
You know what? I'm just looking at the time. Have we really talked for an hour and a half
I think
about
so.
conspiracy theories?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't know if it was all about conspiracy
Wow.
theories, but there's a lot to unpack here because, see, my camera froze again. But there's a lot to unpack because it's a lot about how we frame things and how narratives are creative, and how we interact with each other and form these opinions. Like, that's the Cartesian problem. Like the day that Descartes woke up and realized that every fucking thing he knew from somebody else. That's that's the problem that we all have. We don't actually get much empirical evidence that we create ourselves. We all have to find our trusted sources and rely on them. And it's very easy to tilt into a rabbit hole one way or the other. The blue pill and the red pill in the Matrix. Go back and watch that scene when Morpheus offers the blue pill and the red pill to Neo and see what he says.
Mhm.
It's nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans.
No, I know. I remember that. I'm glad we had this conversation because there is some pieces that um, I took away. I don't know if it necessarily changed me, but I do recognize that there is this piece of me that um, I just want to believe so badly the good in people that sometimes I dismiss conspiracy theories a little too quickly, probably, because sometimes there's some peace and happiness sitting there in ignorance. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's the blue
So
pill.
yeah. So I think there definitely is some truth to that for sure.
Well,
But I also still, with all my heart, believe there is good in most everyone.
I agree with that too. I really do. I agree that a very, very small minority of people can tilt something in the wrong direction without, and everyone else is just along for the ride, believing that they're doing the right thing. And it's not because they're stupid or they're dupes. In fact, it's mostly smart people that um this is a bad term. The communists used to call it, the Soviets called it useful idiots. People that really believed in the cause. The true believer. They really believed that what they were doing was going to help people. And that's
Right.
the blue pill, right? That's the thing that, and I'm very proud of you for listening to me because you stayed in it longer than you wanted to. And I'm happy about that. And I appreciate that. And
Hmm.
I need to talk to you, and I need to talk to people that don't think that there are these forces at work, because it helps me to stay grounded and to sort of hone my arguments. Like, why do I think that there's bad people out there doing bad things, who control the levers of power? Why do I think that? So if I don't talk to somebody who doesn't believe it, then I never get to fix my arguments and make my arguments actually persuasive.